Most businesses begin in a garage, or a small office, or someone's spare bedroom. Jessica Parker started hers in a parking lot, not because she wanted to, because nobody would rent her an office. She tried everything. She filled out applications, met with landlords, explained her business idea, promised she would pay on time. It didn't matter. Banks rejected her. Landlords rejected her. Property managers looked at a first-time entrepreneur with almost no money, no business history, and no established clients. To them, she looked like a risk, someone with a dream but no proof. So every door closed, one after another. For a while, Jessica wondered if everyone else was right. Maybe she wasn't ready. Maybe she needed more experience, more savings, a better plan. Then one afternoon, sitting alone behind the wheel of her aging sedan, she realized something. If nobody was willing to give her an office, she already had one. It had 4 wheels, a steering wheel, a driver's seat, and just enough space for a laptop. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't comfortable, but it was hers. The next morning, she parked outside a public library, connected to the free Wi-Fi, opened her laptop, and officially started the business that nobody believed could succeed for nearly a year. Jessica answered client calls from the driver's seat, sent proposals using public Wi-Fi, held business meetings in coffee shops, prepared presentations with a notebook balanced across the passenger seat. A portable charger became essential equipment. The trunk became a filing cabinet. The back seat became storage. Every parking lot became a temporary office. Every sunrise brought a new place to work. People laughed. Some called it desperate. Others quietly assumed the business would disappear within months. After all, how could anyone build a serious company from the front seat of an old car? Jessica never argued with them. She was too busy building. 7 years later, the woman who couldn't rent a tiny office owned the very building she had once dreamed of working in. And the old sedan that everyone pitied had quietly become the place where every important decision, every first client, and every impossible dream had begun. And that's what makes this story so extraordinary. But to understand how one rejected entrepreneur turned a parked car into the birthplace of a remarkable company, we have to go back to the day every office door closed. This is her story. Jessica Parker had never planned on becoming an entrepreneur. Growing up, she imagined a career much like everyone else's. Find a good job, work hard, earn promotions, build a stable life. For a long time, that's exactly what she did. After graduating, she joined a mid-sized marketing agency that worked with businesses across a wide range of industries: retail, healthcare, professional services, manufacturing. Every new client looked different. But after a few years, Jessica noticed something they all had in common. They believed their biggest challenge was attracting more customers. She wasn't so sure. Meeting after meeting, she watched executives spend enormous amounts of money on advertising campaigns while ignoring the people who had already chosen to do business with them. Customers complained. Emails went unanswered. Feedback was collected, then forgotten. Loyal clients quietly disappeared, not because competitors offered better products, because they felt nobody was listening. Working in marketing had taught Jessica something important. Most companies didn't have a marketing problem. They had a listening problem. The more she thought about it, the more impossible it became to ignore. She began filling notebooks with ideas, ways businesses could better understand their customers, simple systems for collecting feedback, processes for responding faster, strategies that focused less on selling and more on serving. At first, those ideas were nothing more than notes written during lunch breaks and late evenings at home, but over time, they became something much bigger, an opportunity. Jessica found herself thinking about the idea during meetings while driving home from work, even on weekends. Eventually, she reached a point where pretending she didn't see the problem became harder than trying to solve it. So one morning, she walked into her manager's office, thanked him for every opportunity the company had given her, placed a resignation letter on the desk, and walked away from the only stable career she had ever known. Not because she had investors waiting to fund her, not because she had years of savings in the bank, not because she had a perfectly polished business plan. She left because she believed she could build something better, something that helped businesses stop talking at their customers and finally start listening to them. For the first time in her life, Jessica wasn't following someone else's vision. She was betting on her own. There was only one problem. She had nowhere to build it. No office, no workspace, no address she could put on a business card, only an aging sedan parked outside, waiting to become something it had never been designed to be. Jessica spent the first few weeks believing the office problem would solve itself. She searched online every evening, scheduled appointments with property managers, visited small office buildings, shared workspaces, even tiny rooms that barely had enough space for a desk. She wasn't looking for luxury. She just wanted a place where she could begin. Every meeting seemed promising at first. Then the same questions always came. How long has your business been operating? Can you provide financial statements? Do you have long-term clients? Can someone guarantee the lease? Jessica answered honestly. The business was brand new. Revenue was almost non-existent. She had no investors, no business credit, no corporate history. Almost every conversation ended the same way. We'll let you know. Most never called back. Some landlords didn't even bother replying to her emails. Others politely explained that they couldn't take the risk. After weeks of rejection, Jessica stopped taking it personally. She realized they weren't rejecting her dream. They were rejecting uncertainty. Unfortunately, that uncertainty was all she had. One afternoon, after another unsuccessful meeting, she climbed back into her aging sedan and sat quietly with both hands resting on the steering wheel. The silence inside the car felt strangely familiar. She looked around. The driver's seat, the passenger seat, the trunk, the back seat. Then she laughed, not because the situation was funny, because the answer had been sitting around her the entire time. If nobody was willing to rent her an office, she would stop looking for one. The next morning, her car became company headquarters. A laptop sat on the passenger seat. A portable hotspot replaced office internet. A small printer lived inside the trunk. Folders filled with proposals and client notes were carefully organized behind the driver's seat. A notebook rarely left her hands. Every morning began the same way. She found a quiet parking lot, opened the laptop, reviewed her schedule, and got to work. Public libraries became temporary co-working spaces whenever she needed reliable Wi-Fi. Coffee shops became conference rooms. Public parks became places to prepare presentations before important client meetings. Sometimes she spent hours inside the car, answering emails between appointments. During the summer, the heat was exhausting. During the winter, the cold made typing almost unbearable. There were days when she questioned whether any of it made sense. Then the phone would ring. A potential client, an opportunity, a reason to keep going. Jessica quickly learned something most entrepreneurs never experience. A business doesn't become real because you have an office. It becomes real the moment you decide to solve someone's problem. Little by little, the car stopped feeling temporary. It became part of the company itself. Every parking lot became a workplace. Every coffee shop became a conference room. Every mile she drove carried another possibility. And every single day became a lesson in resilience. She still didn't have an office, but something even more important was beginning to take shape. She had her first customers, and with them, the first proof that her idea might actually work after all. Take a moment and imagine this. You're trying to build a business, but you have no office, no investors, no employees, no impressive address to put on your business card, just an aging car, a laptop, a notebook full of ideas, and a dream that almost nobody believes in. Would you keep going? Or would you convince yourself to wait until life became easier, until you had more money, more experience, more certainty? Because that's exactly where Jessica finds herself right now. Every rejection tells her to stop. Every closed door suggests she's not ready. But instead of waiting for the perfect opportunity, she decides to build one herself, and that single decision changes everything. If you're enjoying stories about entrepreneurship, resilience, impossible comebacks, and the people who built extraordinary businesses from almost nothing, make sure to subscribe. We publish a brand new business story every single day, so turn on notifications and join us again tomorrow for another inspiring journey. Now let's see how a company that began in the driver's seat of an old car finally caught the market's attention. For weeks, Jessica heard more no than yes. Potential clients politely declined her proposals. Some chose larger agencies. Others questioned whether such a small business could really deliver. A few even asked where her office was. Jessica smiled. "We're still growing," she would say. She never mentioned that her office was parked just a few blocks away. Then, one Tuesday morning, everything changed. A small family-owned business agreed to give her a chance. It wasn't a large contract. It wouldn't make her rich. But to Jessica, it felt like someone had finally opened the first real door. She treated that client as though they were the most important company in the world. Every phone call was answered. Every email received a reply within minutes. Every problem became her problem. She wasn't trying to impress them. She was trying to earn something much more valuable than revenue. Their trust. She visited their office whenever they needed help, stayed late refining strategies, adjusted campaigns based on customer feedback instead of assumptions. She listened carefully, not just to the business owner, but to their customers. Within a few months, something remarkable happened. Sales improved, customer satisfaction increased. The owner couldn't stop talking about the results. One conversation led to another, then another. Soon, Jessica received a phone call from someone she had never met. "I heard about you from one of your clients." A week later, another referral arrived, then another. Jessica never spent thousands of dollars on advertising. She couldn't afford to. Instead, her customers became her marketing department. Every successful project quietly created the next opportunity. As the client list grew, so did her confidence. She was still working from the driver's seat of her aging sedan, still balancing her notebook on the passenger seat, still sending proposals from coffee shops and public libraries. But something had fundamentally changed. She no longer wondered whether the business could survive. Now she wondered how fast it could grow, little by little. The company crossed an important milestone for the first time. It became profitable, not because Jessica suddenly had more money, or better equipment, or a beautiful office. The car was still her office, the notebook was still her planner, the parking lot was still where many mornings began. The difference was never the resources. It was how she chose to use them. While larger competitors relied on bigger budgets, Jessica relied on stronger relationships. While others chased rapid growth, she chased lasting trust, and without realizing it, she had quietly built something that many larger companies struggled to create. A reputation, one customer at a time, one promise at a time, one parking space at a time. What Jessica didn't know was that the success spreading quietly through word of mouth was about to reach people she had never imagined working with, and once that happened, her little office on 4 wheels would no longer be enough. Success didn't arrive all at once. It arrived one customer at a time, one recommendation at a time, one solved problem at a time. Year after year, Jessica kept doing exactly what had brought her this far. She listened carefully, delivered consistently, and treated every client like a long-term partner instead of a quick sale. The business grew steadily, then faster. Soon, the driver's seat was no longer big enough to hold everything the company needed. Jessica hired her first employee, then another. For the first time, she rented a small office. It wasn't luxurious, the furniture didn't match. The conference room barely fit 4 people. But to Jessica, it felt like a palace, not because of what it looked like, because of what it represented. It was proof that the business no longer depended on a parking lot. Months turned into years. The small office became too crowded. The team continued growing. New employees arrived. New clients signed long-term contracts. The company expanded into neighboring cities, then into new markets. Jessica found herself spending less time answering every customer call herself, and more time helping her growing team deliver the same level of care that had built the company from the beginning. One afternoon, while reviewing expansion opportunities with her leadership team, a real estate broker mentioned something unexpected. Our commercial building had just been listed for sale. Jessica glanced at the address, then quietly smiled. She recognized it immediately. Years earlier, it was one of the very first buildings where she had asked to rent a tiny office. She still remembered walking through its lobby, carrying nothing but a folder filled with business plans and hope. She remembered sitting across from the property manager, explaining her vision, answering questions about a company that barely existed, and hearing the same polite rejection she had heard so many times before. "I'm sorry. We're looking for tenants with a stronger financial history." At the time, she had walked back to her car wondering if her dream was simply too small for the world to believe in. Now, the building itself was available. Most people saw a commercial property. Jessica saw something completely different. She saw the place that had unknowingly challenged her to keep going. She didn't spend weeks debating the decision. She bought it. Not because she wanted revenge, not because she wanted to prove the landlords had been wrong. By then, there was nothing left to prove. She bought it because every time she walked through those doors, she wanted to remember exactly where the journey had begun. The company moved into its new headquarters a few months later. Bright offices replaced the cramped workspace. Conference rooms overlooked the city skyline. Teams that once fit around a single table now filled entire floors. Visitors often admired the modern building. Its architecture, its energy, its success. Jessica admired something else, the parking lot. Because every morning as she arrived at the office, she couldn't help remembering another parking lot, another morning, another version of herself. Sitting inside, an aging sedan with a laptop balanced on the passenger seat, dreaming about a future that nobody else could see. Looking back, she realized something extraordinary. The building had never been the goal. It had simply become another milestone, because the company had never really been built inside an office. It had been built long before that, inside a car, one determined day at a time. Years later, visitors arriving at Jessica Parker's headquarters often noticed something unusual. Parked inside the company garage, surrounded by brand-new executive vehicles, sat an old silver sedan. Its paint had faded. The seats were worn. The engine barely started on cold mornings by almost every standard. It was worthless. New employees often assumed it belonged to a maintenance worker. Clients occasionally asked why such an old car was still parked inside the company's private garage. Even long-time employees joked that it was finally time to replace it. Jessica always smiled. Then she gave them the same answer. "No. That's the most important vehicle this company has ever owned." At first, people thought she was joking. She wasn't. Because every major decision, every first client, every rejected proposal, every business plan, every difficult phone call, every late-night strategy session, every moment of doubt, and every impossible dream had started inside that car, long before there were conference rooms. There was a driver's seat, long before there were employees. There was one determined woman with a laptop balanced on the passenger seat, long before there was a company headquarters. There was a parking lot. Jessica never forgot that. In fact, she occasionally unlocked the old sedan, sat behind the steering wheel, and spent a few quiet minutes there before major company announcements or important board meetings. Not because she missed those difficult days, because she never wanted to lose perspective. Success has a way of making people forget where they started. Jessica believed forgetting was dangerous. The car reminded her that resourcefulness is often more valuable than resources. That determination can accomplish what money cannot, and that some of life's greatest opportunities begin only after every obvious door has closed. Years later, young entrepreneurs constantly asked her the same question. When did you know the company was going to succeed? Jessica would usually smile before answering. I didn't. I simply decided that I wasn't going to wait for perfect conditions. Then she would point toward the old sedan parked quietly in the garage. People expected her to talk about investors, or strategy, or scaling a business. Instead, she talked about a parking lot. Because that's where she learned the lesson that shaped everything that came afterward. The office never built the business. The business built the office. Looking back, Jessica realized something that many entrepreneurs spend their entire careers trying to understand. Success isn't determined by where you start. It isn't determined by how much money you have or by the address printed on your business card. It's determined by what you're willing to build with whatever you already have. Years earlier, people saw a woman sitting alone inside an old car. They saw someone who couldn't even rent a tiny office. Years later, they saw the founder of one of the fastest-growing companies in the industry. Jessica saw something different. She saw the very same woman. The only difference was that the rest of the world had finally caught up with the vision she had been carrying in the passenger seat all along. Jessica's story reminds us that opportunity doesn't always arrive with perfect conditions. Sometimes it begins inside the smallest, most uncomfortable places. The world may focus on what you don't have: money, an office, connections, resources. But those things have never been the true starting point of extraordinary success. History is filled with people who built remarkable businesses long before they had the resources everyone else thought they needed. Jessica couldn't control the doors that closed in front of her. She couldn't force landlords to believe in her. She couldn't convince banks to take a chance on an unknown entrepreneur. But she could control one thing: whether she kept moving forward. Instead of waiting for the perfect office, she built the business with the only workspace she had, and in doing so, she proved something powerful. Sometimes the greatest advantage isn't having everything you need. It's learning how to build something extraordinary with what you already have. If you enjoyed this story, leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments what's the most unusual place you've ever worked, or had an idea that changed your life. I genuinely love to read your story, and I read as many comments as I possibly can. And don't forget, we publish a brand new business story every single day. Every single day. You'll discover inspiring stories about entrepreneurs, billion-dollar companies, impossible comebacks, remarkable business decisions, and the people who refuse to wait for perfect conditions before changing their lives. So subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us again tomorrow for another unforgettable story. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, years earlier, Jessica sat alone in an aging sedan parked outside a public library, wondering if anyone would ever believe in her idea. Looking back, she realized she had been sitting in the very place where her future was being built. Sometimes, the road to success really does begin in the driver's seat. See you tomorrow.